Whether it's a keynote for 4,000 people or a small workshop for 40, Barry Maher is an unforgettable speaker whose results show up on the bottom line. His books have been translated around the world, and Filling the Glass has been honored as one of the 7 essential popular business books. You may have seen Barry on The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, or CNBC, and he's frequently featured in publications like USA Today, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and what he insists is his personal favorite, Funeral Service Insider.
This is Barry Maher. Mark Twain said, "Great people make you feel that you too can become great." If you make the people you deal with feel they can become great, you might not be a great person, but you're certainly going to get great results, particularly if you can offer concrete strategies, tips, and tactics to help them along.
This, all kidding aside now, this can be an hour that transforms your life. This can be an hour that transforms your life. Of course, you've heard that before. That's what speakers always tell you. That's what gurus always tell you. Hey, what I'll tell you, any hour can be an hour that transforms your life. Could be this one, could be the next one, could have been the last one. It's simply up to you to choose that hour to make the transformation. Let me suggest that it might as well be this one. Okay? If for no other reason, I'm already here, I don't do refunds.
A positive attitude should never keep us from looking a potential negative square in the eye. It's the only way to find a way to deal with it, isn't it? It's the only way to find a way to make peace with it. It's the only way progress is ever made. And it's the best way I know to build trust and to maintain trust over a period of time. The song says, "I believe for every drop of rain, a flower grows." Someone else said, yeah, and a roof leaks, and a car rusts, and a person catches cold, and a ball game, canceled. I say, hey, you never want to forget about that flower growing. But it doesn't make any sense to forget about that leaky roof either, right? Not if you want to stay dry. Tell you a story. 3:30 on a hot, stuffy Friday afternoon. We've drawn the blinds against the direct sunlight, so the room is dark. In fact, it's almost cave-like. The 3 people I'm with have been conducting job interviews since maybe about 8:30 in the morning, and I'm there kibitzing, I'm consulting. I'm trying to do something about a hiring process that has left this particular company with a 37% annual turnover rate. Yeah, they thought that was a tad high. Our 6th interviewee of the day walks into the room, introduced himself to us as Clyde Thompson. The man has a scar running from his hairline, across his forehead, down across his eyelid, and onto his cheek. And his entire face is, more than a bit weathered, to say the very least. Now, the guy is well-groomed, but like myself, he has the kind of non-standardized body that can take a $3,000 Armani suit and make it look just like it was ripped off the rack at Kmart. Okay? It's the only reason I'm not wearing a $3,000 Armani suit today. Anyway, Clyde's got gray mustache, gray hair. The guy appears to be in his mid-50s. Now, we've got 3 strong candidates, only got 2 openings. And in 2 days of interviewing here, the boss, the division manager, has shown an unshakable desire for what she calls vigorous and energetic candidates, by which she means, anybody? Bingo, young. Her 2 subordinates, they take their cues from her completely on everything. So she starts off the interview with the question she normally finishes with. She says, "So, Mr. Thompson, why should we hire you?" Clyde smiles, leans forward in his chair. He says, "I'm 53 years old. I'm not pretty. I've been unemployed for almost 5 months now, ever since my last company went belly up. I have absolutely no experience in your industry. If you take a look at my application, you'll see there's a check mark next to the yes on that question about whether or not I've ever been convicted of a felony. I've applied for any number of other jobs. Nobody will hire me." The question was, why should we hire you? But Clyde's saying these things, and he's ticking his points off on his fingers as confidently as if he's talking about his Olympic gold medals, his Harvard MBA, his 7 years as CEO of General Motors. Might not be quite the credential it used to be, right? But anyway, so then he says, "So let me tell you I'm the best possible candidate you're ever going to find for this job." The guy proceeds to do exactly that. He says, "If you hire me, I can't afford not to succeed. Job gets too grueling, I don't have the option of moving on to greener pastures. I don't even have brown pastures. He said, there are no other pastures for me until I'm ready to be put out to pasture." He said, "I'm 100% committed. I'm as locked into this position as I was locked into that jail cell 35 years ago. And if you notice, that's where I got most of the credits for my college degree. Fortunately, I never needed a master's, so I never had to go back." he said, but the things I've learned in that place, the formal and the informal training, have a huge amount to do with why I've been so extremely successful at every job I've had since then. Now, Clyde Thompson walked into that room that day, and in my humble opinion, he had about as much chance of getting that job as he had of being elected Miss Congeniality, the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City the following September. Then what's he do? Then he gives us all the reasons we might not want to hire him. All the stuff we would have come up with on our own once he left the room. A couple of things we might never even have thought of, right? But when he did leave the room, the discussion had barely touched on any of those points. Clyde had already put them on the table. It felt like we'd already dealt with them. But I tell you something, it was an extraordinary discussion because Clyde had taken his unemployability and what? Turned it into his strongest asset. The fact that the other candidates was so good they could quit, get down the road, get hired someplace else in a heartbeat, had become a liability for them. Every single one of us in that room was convinced that Clyde was never going to add to that 37% annual turnover rate, at least not if there was anything the guy could do to avoid it. So what happens? Division manager makes Clyde her number one choice, numero uno. Her two subordinates, and I later found out these guys were known around the office as Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. No shock to anybody, they make the selection unanimous. Following Monday, they call up, actually Tweedledummer calls up, and offers Clyde the job. Clyde asks for 24 hours to think it over. Then he calls them back the next morning, thanks them, and turns them down. Because unemployable Clyde Thompson got himself a better offer. Now, I would suggest, because whether you call the glass half empty, whether you call it half full, whether you call it Jake the Amazing Wonder Glass, still only 3 ounces of water, right? See? And she said something really, which I thought was really profound. She said, the secret to my success is very simple. I just treat everyone I encounter as if they had an invisible sign around their neck which said, make me feel important. Duh. William James, the psychologist, said the greatest need of the human soul is the need to feel important. Make people feel important. Something else we all know we don't always remember. Now, are our clients, in your case members, are they important? Is there any company in the known universe, is there any company on the planet, one company on the planet that doesn't realize their clients are important? Probably not, right? Every company realizes that. The question is, how often do those clients feel important? Often, isn't it more like that phone message? Because we value your business, please continue to hold. Because we value your business, please continue to hold. Hey, if we didn't value your business, we'd just hang up on your butt. You're lucky that we're hanging on. Because we value your business, please continue to hold. Because we value your business, we're going to reduce your productivity so we can increase ours. If I'm going to be robbed, I prefer to have it done without the hypocrisy. I'd much rather have somebody stick a gun in my belly and say, because I value your money, please give me your wallet. Make people feel important. With all the blather about customer-centric companies, with all the blather about customer service, it's still the simplest and the cheapest way to differentiate yourself and your organization from the competition, right? Make people feel important. Enjoy, and find joy, even when things are tough. I know a cancer doctor who has a motto that she hung in her office. And coming from her, I thought it was pretty much as profound as it was simple. And it was simply this: he or she that has the most fun wins. Young entrepreneur is meeting with the top executive team of his number one corporate client. And this is a big client for him. It's a big percentage of his business. So it's an important meeting. He's got his best suit on. He's got a brand new shirt on, a little too tight around the collar. The tie's kind of bobbing up and down on his Adam's apple. And he's trying to get a little rapport going with these people, get a little conversation going. Now, when you're in somebody's house and you want to get a little conversation going, where do you find the thing that they value the most? Where would you look? Pictures, yeah. Over the mantle, right? That's where they put the thing they value the most. Oh, Mrs. Jones, what a lovely picture of dogs playing poker. Yes. And in black velvet, too. It's just so stunning. Yes. And in somebody's office, where would you look? On the desk or behind the desk. And this guy knew this, and he sees on the desk is a big old silver picture frame. He peers around, and he sees in the picture frame is a picture of an attractive-looking young woman. Now, she's not Miss America, but she's not bad. and he's desperate. So he says to the older gentleman, he says, "She is absolutely gorgeous." The CEO's face lights up. This is the right thing to say. Even the guy's mustache smiles. And then the young entrepreneur says to the older gentleman, "Is that your granddaughter?" Stunned silence fills the room, right? The old man glares at him, even his mustache bristles, and he says to the entrepreneur, "That, sir, is my wife." So now it's the young entrepreneur's turn to be stunned. He looks around the room, but nobody will meet his eye. All he can think of is all that business, far too big a percentage of his business going right on out the window. He thinks for just a minute, and he sees on the wall there's a shelf, and on that shelf there's a ceremonial sword. He rushes over. He grabs that sword. He snatches it off the shelf. He runs back to the CEO's desk. He drops to his knees in front of the desk. He lifts the sword high over his head. He shrieks, "Ee-ah!" and he plunges the sword into the space between his body and his arm. Falls forward onto his face, thrashes around a little bit, does a death rattle, "Ah!" and lays still. Yet another stunned silence fills the room. Then the place erupts into laughter. Entrepreneur looks up, sees the CEO is laughing too. Now, he's not laughing as hard as the others, maybe, but he's laughing nonetheless. The tension is broken. The account is saved.
There is nothing wrong with not racing to win. There's nothing wrong with not racing to win. It's a choice you make. It's a legitimate one. Just don't kid yourself about what you're doing. Just don't kid yourself of where you're going to be when the race is over. If you really want to excel, you've got to want to do it badly enough that you'll want to do all those things that it takes to make it happen. A lot of wants in that sentence. If you really want to excel, you've got to want to do it badly enough that you'll want to do all the things it takes to make it happen. And you have got to provide the motivation yourself, the constant motivation to make sure those things get done. Now, we spend millions of dollars on self-improvement in this country. All the money we spend in this country on self-improvement, you'd think we'd be darn close to perfect by now. Okay? Absolutely. But when it comes to motivation, all anyone else can ever do, all the greatest motivator in the world, all the greatest guru, all the greatest manager, the greatest leader can ever do is talk you into motivating yourself, is sell you on the idea of motivating yourself. You got to do the heavy lifting. You've got to do the work. Nobody else can motivate you. You motivate you. And Stephen Covey can't be with you every moment of the day when all those thousands of little decisions that lead toward a goal or away from a goal have to be made. You got to take responsibility for your own motivation. You got to be your own guru. You got to be your own favorite motivational speaker. Start thinking of that as part of your job description, part of what you have to do, part of what you want to do, okay? And part of what's going to help you get where you want to go, and part of what's going to help you start filling that glass. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Obviously, this is just a tiny sampling to give you an idea of what a session with Barry Maher can do for your people and your event. And of course, every presentation is customized specifically for the needs of your group. So you can count on Barry Maher to give you the results that few speakers at any fee can match.